What?
What's up, y'all? Today we are reviewing the Muddy ProCam 14s.
It's a 14 megapixel camera that can be found for around 50 bucks. They make a 16 now as their bottom line. That's around 60.
It's kind of the same camera. Be sure and subscribe below if you want to see more awesome videos like this, trail camera reviews, and otherwise. And also hit that like button down there.
So as usual, the first thing we're going to do is talk about the bad. And there are a few bad things about this camera, including the imagery quality.
Pretty much the essential for a camera.
Pretty much.
So
Go ahead, yep.
On these cameras, it's touch disappointing. Oh no. Because honestly, Tyler had another Muddy camera before these two that was awesome, that they don't make anymore. The Muddy ProCam 12, which was their top end a couple years back. I gotta sneeze. Peek the Mike Peeker.
Mr. Mike Peeker is gonna give you the lowdown on these cameras.
Yeah. We got these assuming that they would be close, and they just really aren't.
No. I think what it boils down to is that Muddy, it looks like, at least for the foreseeable future, is probably gonna continue to make one lower megapixel camera and one higher megapixel camera, and the higher is gonna be an awesome camera. The lower might have its struggles.
So let's talk a little bit about camera construction, maybe the internal details, okay? We don't know a ton about this. Go listen to episode 4 of the podcast, way back in the day.
7, I think.
7, Gil Lackey. Go listen to episode 4 too. But let's find Gil Lackey on our podcast. He goes into the really intricate details of trail cameras, as well as I think Jake Hofer did a little bit too at some point in time from Exodus. Anyways, you can go learn a little bit about interpolation. What I know about interpolation is the fact that this trail camera is not a 14 megapixel trail camera. It's a 7 megapixel trail camera that they've interpolated to double the pixels. So it's really not any greater detail, but they make more pixels.
Yeah. Somehow they're able to call it something that it's not legally, I guess.
Which everybody does it, okay? Sure. Well, maybe not everybody. A lot of people do it, all right, in the trail camera industry. But it's kind of misconceiving where you can get this camera and it takes about the same quality pictures as some of your cheaper 7 or 8 megapixel cameras that you're going to find out there on the market.
So as we break into the camera a little bit, the one thing you'll notice that when you turn this camera on and the screen comes on, there is a definite lag time from when you press the buttons to the time that it actually does something. I didn't even know yours was working. How about that?
It's got a battery in it.
So pressing a button, sometimes you have to like wait like a full second, which is, it sounds like not much, but when you're like moving around and you expect things to kind of have response to you, it's not, it responds so slow. So that can kind of like cause a little bit of like frantic things going on while you're trying to set
or a wrong time or date on your camera when you think you've pressed the button enough times and you haven't, or vice versa.
Yeah, that's just one thing that we always notice every time we pick the camera up. We're like, oh man, these buttons, you know. But it does have several options of arrows and an OK and a menu button that are actually pretty nice for navigating through the menu.
Another thing that we've noticed on these cameras is just that sometimes they're not the most durable, okay? If you look at this one right here, the battery tray won't actually stay in. I don't even know if we're going to be able to salvage this camera. We might have to scrap it just because of a battery tray issue. Something to do with this plastic piece right here is broken off and now it no longer latches. It's pretty frustrating to see a camera that's pretty much all well and good. Nothing's wrong with it. It just has some type of plastic that messed up.
Yeah, and we had that happen on actually maybe the good camera that I had.
I know, we used duct tape.
It had a battery tray issue where we came to a place and had been out in such a sweet spot for like 2 months. We come and we don't find that the camera's on, and what in the world's going on? And KC, of course, being as observant as he is, sees that the tray is popped out just slightly.
Oh no.
And we were so just disgusted and disappointed at the same time, you know.
This comes with the territory, but on cheap cameras like this, okay, they might even advertise black flash, but they're not black flash. You can see whenever it starts to turn on. We have evidence of this because dear, look at these cameras when they go off. That's pretty much the easy way to tell, right? And there's some things that I don't know that much about it. Go listen to the Carl Miller podcast. Hey, that's like the 3rd podcast plug in this video. How about that?
I'll take it.
But Carl Miller is way smarter than we are, and he knows a lot about deer vision. Go listen to that podcast. You'll learn a lot about deer vision. But apparently they can see the light that is emitted from these trail cameras.
Also, the camera might make some noise, and I can't completely test this and say that it's 100% accurate, but it seems like there's some daytime when a deer is close that it may actually hear the camera like registering, turning on and taking the picture, which can happen with a cheaper camera or a lower line camera sometimes. Another thing as I went through those pictures that I noticed was that oftentimes it seemed that this camera fogged up really easily. And that's unfortunate because a lot of times a foggy day is a pretty good day to be in the woods.
It is. I think November 18th last year was one of those kind of days. And luckily we had some midday movement that day, and we got some pretty good pictures actually of some really good bucks in the middle of the day with these cameras. And that's kind of one of the nice things is whenever the deer are standing still, it takes a pretty nice photo. So it's not like the cameras are worthless, it's just there is some bad involved. But there's a lot of good involved too. Kind of one of the greatest things about this camera, which it's kind of, I don't know, it might seem like nothing to a lot of people, but it's about the only cameras I actually still leave the factory strap on. I like to really use bungee straps, but these little buckley straps like this are really nice. You can put it on a tree, cinch it down, pretty much all hanging on with one arm and using one arm to put the camera on. They're pretty handy, to tell you the truth.
Another thing about it, especially in the daytime, is that the trigger for a lower end camera seems to be actually pretty fast most of the time. There were definitely misses. There were several sequences that had misses, but a lot of that was during the rut, and our camera actually happened to be really close to a scrape, which we knew that, but we also had, it was pretty much the only place we could put it in this particular area. It got a lot of really great 5-picture sequences of bucks as they're kind of moving through, relatively fast. So I like the trigger speed on these two.
And the thing to always note on that is it's really battery dependent too. No matter what camera you're using, if you put really good batteries in it and it's cold outside, it's gonna have a better trigger speed than if you put the cheapos in it.
Yeah.
So no matter top to bottom, they're all gonna do that.
Yeah, and the good thing about these cameras when it comes to batteries is that you can put more expensive batteries in these and feel pretty good about it because these trays take 6 batteries, not 8. Exactly. If you buy a 24 pack of batteries and your typical camera takes 8, then you're looking at 3 cameras that you can put out. With these Muddies, you can put out 4 cameras for the same price in batteries. So when you're looking at buying lithiums, like that's a considerable thing to look at. So good thing there for sure.
Yeah, for sure. I think another thing that's really nice about this camera is the latch system on the door. It's a single latch, and some people might think that's a disadvantage. I kind of like it because it's pretty speedy. It's one little latch, pop it open, pull your card out, put your new card in, format it. And it's a pretty quick, seamless little thing. And that latch still gets a pretty good weather seal on it. I mean, outside of flooding, which is a whole nother story, we've lost a lot of cameras to floods. But outside of flooding, I don't think we ever had one of these things leak and have an issue just from rain or anything like that. So they have pretty good weather seal on them.
Yeah, for sure, and they're pretty quiet too. And as you open it, obviously one thing you're going to be looking through is the menu here, and I actually like the menu. So I've alluded to this before. My dad is one of the world's worst trail camera guys. But so this may not be his camera because it has quite a few options for a lower end camera. It's got a pretty extensive menu, so yes, even with those laggy buttons, you've got to go through it all, But it's a good thing to have those options, in my opinion, because we run so many. I wouldn't say we're experts; we have a lot of experience, right? For another guy like my dad, something maybe more in the line of just like here's a dial and 2-3 quick sets, whatever, would be a different thing. But I personally think that it's a good thing to have lots of menu options.
Moving to the outside of the camera, I really like the way this camera is built on the back. We talk a lot about the front and what's going on up here, but this is the part that connects to the tree. I've already said that we really do like the strap on these cameras, but if you look on this camera, it actually has a whole solid piece design where this thing mounts up to the tree. It's very solid. It pairs well up to a tree. It's got a little curvature to it, some teeth to bite there. But what I really like is that the stick method, where you put a little stick right here, points it down, that kind of thing, works really good on these cameras because there's no gaps or weird things where the stick doesn't fit or it doesn't work in there right. It's just a good solid connection point between camera and tree.
It's compact. So carrying these in, it always feels like you just got a little thing, It's not like a big old huge camera. And also the color along with that compactness, makes this a pretty difficult camera to see on a tree for somebody who might be a thief. And if they do, it's a lower end camera. So this has definitely been a good public land option for us.
Yeah, for sure. And honestly, they don't really show up bad for deer either. I mean, I know that the deer are not going to see them great, but anyways, it's a good color and it's a nice accessory. So not that it doesn't have its flaws, but it's pretty inexpensive, especially for, I don't know, what you might consider like one of the better brands out there. So take it for what it's worth. It will take a good picture, but it might be one of those things where you're setting up this camera over scrapes, over some sort of mineral source or something where you're gonna have deer that you're getting a good solid picture of. My advice, I wouldn't use video mode on this camera hardly ever. It's just not worth it. But if you want to be satisfied, put it on a 5-picture burst and you're going to get some decent shots out of a camera that's not very pricey. We want to know what affordable cameras that you've used in the past that actually have worked for you. There's a whole lot of cheapos out there, but a lot of them don't work very well. If you have a good affordable camera that's worked well for you, be sure and comment about it below. Let us know which one it is.
Remember, this is your element.
Live in it.